to interact with others and love others. And so just think about that as we sing the song.
is well with me. Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well, it is ask that your Holy Spirit washes over us this morning, that it draws us together, closer to you, and that we feel your peace inside of us. Amen.
You guys go ahead and grab a seat. My name is Matt Olszewski. I'm one of the pastors here at H2O. If I have not had a chance to meet you, I look forward to doing that. I just want to run through some quick announcements with you guys. If you have your handouts, a lot of the announcements are in your handout. First one is our Connect card. If you are newer here or if you've never filled out our Connect card, there's a QR code that you can scan. It'll take you to this online form. You can fill it out, and that gives us the best opportunity to reach out to you, to get you involved more in the church, to meet other people, and specifically, the next announcement is get you involved in what we call Life Group. And these are just smaller groups of people that meet Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 o'clock over here in the lounge. We talk about life, we talk about the Bible, and just really start building friendships. So we'd love for you to get involved in Life Group if you are not already. We started something 2 weeks ago and took a week last week. It's called The Well. It's a 5-week experience class. There you go, Alex, clapping it out here. Wow, it just keeps growing. All right, The Well. Okay, people are excited about The Well because it is a great time for wherever you are at on your journey, your spiritual journey, learning about Jesus, or if you have known Jesus for a long time. We consider this class to be a great time for you to just kind of explore more what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus and more about H2O. And so even though if you miss the first week, you can still come to week 2, which is today at 2:30 in the library near the Starbucks. If you just see a bunch of people gathered near the Starbucks, that's us, and we're going to go into a room near Starbucks. So we'd love for you to be involved in The Well if you have never done that. Also, can you guys believe it? It's almost 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks that we go on spring break. Come on. Spring break is amazing. And H2O, we're going to be taking a trip down to Hocking Hills. We're going to be staying in a cabin. We're going to be having a ton of fun, great food, a lot of time with people to get to know them. So we'd love for you to come on this trip with us. Today is technically the deadline. Okay, deadline. We never have hard deadlines here. Sometimes we do. This is not one of them. Okay, we would like to get a $50 deposit for that trip today. And if you are interested, if this is your first time hearing about this, or you are going to make a last-second decision, we'd love for you to meet us out in the hallway after, and we would love to discuss what spring break would look like for you. A couple more announcements here is that we are in the middle of a friendship series about friendship. What does the Bible say about friendship? How can we grow in our friendships? And on Tuesday, the 28th, to close out our series, because next Sunday is going to be the last talk about friendship, but then 2 days later, we're going to have right here in this room a panel discussion where you guys can submit questions about friendship. So there's another QR code in the handout. You can scan that. You can submit questions. We'd love for you guys to submit those because that gives us a great idea of what people want to know about friendship. So go ahead and scan that if you have some questions. And then finally, if you've been here at H2O this semester, you know that we've been trying to do a memory verse every single month of the semester. So we started out at the end of January, going into February, where we have been memorizing Proverbs 18:24, and most Sundays we have been saying it together. And so I want us to say the verse together, and we would love by the end of the month for you guys to actually have it memorized. Okay? So you guys can just follow along with me. And I swear I have this verse memorized, and it's not popping up in my brain right in this current moment. So I'm going to turn around with all of you. I had the first word, and then I was like, I don't know where to go from here. Okay, you guys ready? One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 18:24. All right, that is it for the announcements. Why don't you guys go ahead and stand up and say hi to someone around you?
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to H2O. My name is Tom Stewart. I'm one of the pastors here at H2O. We've been going through a series called Asking for a Friend. We're just talking about friendship, which I think is really timely for this month, which has been deemed, not by me, but I agree with it, called Fighting February. We've all been cooped in together for so long, we're just tired of seeing other people's faces. We've gotten sunshine or warmth or connection. We've been hibernating practically, some of us. So it's a month where I think conflict tends to come out. So that's what I'm going to be talking about this morning. One of the most important life skills that you will need to learn is how to resolve, reconcile, repair a strained or broken relationship. I think it's something that you're going to need. If you don't figure that skill out, you will be very unhappy for a large piece of your life. If conflict resolution or repairing strained relationships is something that you have not picked up or something that you haven't experienced very much of yet, I'm begging you now, it's a good time to start learning. What makes this complicated, I think, is that this is a skill that is caught and not taught. It's modeled for us. It's not something that we ever have a class about conflict 101 or even really talked about directly, hardly at all. It's something that you pick up by seeing, by being a part of. And so the good news and the bad news is there is that, no one's behind. It's not like you're failing a test. The bad news is if conflict resolution has been modeled for you in a bad way, that's how you then operate. In fact, I think probably all of us have some dysfunction that's just been baked into us as a result of our general life experiences growing up and resolving and dealing with conflict. And so the better you get to know people, the more you will see how broken and messed up they are. And the converse of that is that they will start to see how broken and messed up you are. Because a lot of times we have this perspective that there's their perspective and then there's the right perspective. But that's not how it works. There's always two sides. And so you can't really get away from it. It happens in every relationship. Family, work, friendships, and it's something we learn by modeling. And so Christians, we should be good at this, but we are not. We are not probably any better at conflict resolution than the majority of other people. And so if we can't get away from it, let's just talk about it this morning and learn how to manage conflict well. I'm going to pray and we'll get started. God, I just pray that you be with us this morning, that you give us hearts that can hear from you, that you give us soft eyes to have compassion for those in our lives that we have some tension with. God, I pray that you would mold us to be people who look like you and who live in the ways that you've called us. I thank you for who you are. Thank you for your presence this morning. I just pray that you would be with us and let us be moldable. Yeah, I pray. Amen. All right, this is a really fun topic for me to think about and talk about because there really is so much nuance. If you know me, you know I love nuance. I love me gray area with complicated scenarios and where it's not like clear definitions thing. That's not always been how I like things. But I like things that have multiple perspectives, multiple facets. That's kind of where I like to sit. And so, not all conflict is bad. Not all conflict is their fault. Not all conflict is your fault. Not all conflicts can be resolved and keep unity. Not all conflict is divisive. There truly is a lot of gray area. And usually I like to open the Bible and then just pull out a passage and mine it for everything that it's worth. But since this topic is so broad, I wanted to kind of see what the whole biblical wisdom on this area is. So I kind of categorized the verses that I found as I was doing my research for this into 4 topics. I'm going to hit 4 biblical, I think, directives, commands from God that you can pull straight out of the Bible, that read naturally out of the text. We'll talk about those. And then I'll talk about how my life experiences have shaped it. Some just general wisdom, I think, that flows out of those 4 biblical directives. So this is something that everyone needs to hear about because everyone is unique, every person is unique, every conflict is unique, every relationship is unique. And so the first category of the 4 verses starts in James 1:19. If you have the Bible, you want to go there with me. James 1:19. The words will be on the screen behind me too. Here's what it says. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I'm a big believer that the Bible is given to us not just to teach us information, but to also illuminate our hearts. So I want to read that again. As I do, out of those 3 phrases, I want you to see if one of them sticks out more than the other to you. Because I think it probably is something illuminating in us if we hear a verse and something sticks out. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. I think that's probably the best wisdom I can start with here when we're talking about conflict. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. And if I had to guess, probably many of us, me for sure, the first one that sticks out to me on that is quick to listen. I think God's biblical truth to us, the directive that he's giving us here, is to, when we approach a conflict with another person, is this. Start from a place of empathy. That's point 1. Start from a place of empathy. I said already, we usually tend to think about this as there's 2 perspectives, their perspective and the right perspective. And that is not at all how real conflict works. There's 2 perspectives, theirs and yours. And honestly, in many cases, they have a role and so do you. But I want to say that this Bible verse, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, it's focused on having a charitable perspective of the other person. When you have a disagreement with someone, no matter who they are, boss, roommate, best friend, wife, no matter who they are, when you have a disagreement, start from a place of empathy. Come from a place of empathy instead of judgment. Try to understand their perspective, why they feel the way that they feel, why they do the things that they do, and say the things that they say. My wife read a really interesting article or book the other day, and she told me the way to frame the question. When you come into an argument or disagreement, the question that we often ask is, what's wrong with you? So you come at these conflicts from a place of like, that person has something wrong with them. And the blame for that argument usually rests on that person. Like, how could they do that? Why are they doing that? What is wrong with them? But I think that's the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, what happened? Instead of asking, what's wrong with you, ask, what happened to you? Because when you ask that question, you're placing the blame for the way that they act, behave, the things that they do that hurt you, not necessarily on them as much as it is what happened to them, what molded them, what shaped them, what made them the way that they are. And usually that gives me a lot more compassion and a lot more patience for that person. And I can see it from their perspective, and I can understand why they're so hurt, or they're so offended, or why they're taking such an issue with me. It's almost always because they've had something in their past that has built them and shaped them the way that they are. And so the question to ask isn't, what's wrong with them? How could they do that? The question to ask is, what happened? What made them the way that they are? And that kind of goes along with the next point I want to make here. So point one was start from a place of empathy, and point two is recognize your own role in the conflict. Because just like that person has been molded by their environment, by their experiences, by their trauma and their past, that has made them the way that they are, our events, our trauma, our environment has made us the way that we are too. So we have that same innate, baked in pain and grief that makes us the way that we are too. And so usually we have a role in the conflict. They have their perspective, we have ours, and both of us have been wronged and hurt and traumatized by our past. And so when we look at them with compassionate eyes, and when we turn those eyes on ourselves and have compassionate, reflective eyes on us too, we can maybe give ourselves a little more grace and a little more charity too. The Bible speaks about this in a lot of different places. One of them that Jesus brings up himself is this language of speck in their eye and plank in ours. He says, like, you guys are so worried about that sawdust in the other person's eye that you don't notice you have a 2x4 growing out of your eye. It's this language of look at them and look at yourself. What's wrong with them is probably a mirror image of what's wrong with you. What happened to them played a role of what happened to you. And it's that tension of your past and their past being baked in the way that you are that creates conflict in the first place. And I love the way that Paul talks about this too. The verse on the screen here, Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. There's two caveats here. The direction is to live at peace. And the caveats are, if it's possible, and as much as it depends on you. So I think I see two things there. One, not every conflict can be fully resolved. You're not going to be chumming every human being on this planet that you meet. And that's okay. Two, as far as it depends on you. I think that's where this idea of recognize your own role in the conflict. As far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. I think that looks like two things. One, kind of like a short-term recognize your role. Think about the events that you did that contributed to the conflict. Think about what happened. Think about what you did and how you saw them. So there are short-term, small things that we did. But I think a deeper level than that, most of our conflicts are not at the event level. They're at the feeling level. That what transpired felt something. And so I think that in addition to just recognizing, like, what did I say? What did I do? It's looked at inside and think, how was I? What happened to me in my past? How have I been molded? So I'll just give you an example of this. My wife's family and I have very different takes on conflict. I had a very conflict avoidance family who don't really air grievances. They just stuff that stuff way down deep and then pretend like nothing's wrong. Lauren's family is on the other side of that, where they air all their grievances against each other. And I think there's some health and there's some dysfunction on both sides of that. So now I, as a person that's grown up in my family, I tend to stuff my conflicts down deep. I tend not to air my grievances. I tend to just think, well, if I just zip it, and then eventually it'll boil over and I'll say something stupid or mean or petty. I'll be passive aggressive. That's my dysfunction. Lauren's family will just come right at you. So just air it. And so there's some hurt that comes from saying things that you can probably keep to yourself. And so there's two sides of that coin. It's been baked into us. It's caught, not taught. We experience it. It's shown us how. So we need our job, as much as it depends on us, is to look inside and think, what dysfunctions have I been baked in? How are the negative ways I've seen conflict modeled for me that I'm then playing out? Because you gotta think there's also people around you who are living through the conflict. What you do influences the way they see you and what they do too. And so some of this, as far as it depends on us, is reflecting and thinking about ourselves, processing and being aware of our own. Just like I said, to consider the other person's perspective, we have to consider our own. How have we been wrong? I'll just give you one example of this. This is a really common conflict that I've seen in the people I've talked to, and even as I was growing up in college. People who have a friend group they're really close to, and they get like a new boyfriend or new girlfriend, and all of a sudden they're spending a lot of time with that new boyfriend or new girlfriend, and so their friend, maybe you are in this boat right now, you feel like the conversation becomes, you haven't hung out since like this is fun. I never see you anymore. You're always with them. But what's actually happening in that conversation isn't you're spending too much time with your new boyfriend or girlfriend. That's the event. The real conflict is because that person feels unloved. They feel unseen, undervalued. It's a feeling issue. It's much deeper than the conversation. The conversation is, you're not spending time with me. But underneath that is pain and hurt you feel from feeling unloved. And maybe, probably that person has also been cast aside in their past. That this is an event we've seen played out before, where someone in high school cast them aside, they stopped hanging out with them, they stopped being friends with them, and now they see it happening again, and it's bringing back all that pain in their past. And so the conversation here about you're not spending enough time with me is really about I don't feel loved. And so the conflict conversation usually has a greater depth to it. And so Hebrews says it another way. It says, make every effort to live at peace with everyone and be holy. So a lot of times making an effort to live at peace starts with doing work on yourself. A lot of times making an effort to live at peace starts with doing work on yourself. And as always, there's a limit to everything here because this natural inclination for us to look inside us and see what's happening to us can be preyed on and abused by narcissistic people who are just trying to get rid of it. There is a limit to this. If someone's making you feel like it's all your fault or you're doing all the wrong things, that person's in the wrong thing. So there is a limit here. But a lot of times our blind spots are in ourselves. We're thinking about, but not thinking about the ways that we get hurt and wrong and shaped. So point 2 is recognize your worth in the conflict. Point number 3 here is this: be quick to forgive. Be quick to forgive. Here's what I mean by that. Don't let it go. Don't hold on to it. When you have the conversation with that person, don't store it in the bank in your brain to bring up at a later date. I think this is something that happens in a lot of toxic relationships. When one person makes a mistake, it comes up every time they have a fight after. Every time there's conflict, it gets brought. Remember that time you did this, remember that time you did this, and it's all just an attempt to make that other person feel less or other or worse. And so when I say be quick to forgive, I'm just going to hold on to it. If it happened, put it in the past. Colossians 3:13 says this: bear with one another. If one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so must you also forgive. And so my takeaway here, the point of this is that good conflict actually builds resilience. Like if you have a conflict and you feel that tension and then it gets resolved, your bond on the other side of that will be stronger. And again, I can say I've seen this play out in my own life too. You get some small conflict, and in my past, especially romantic past, way past. So I've been married for 11 years. This is all like ancient history in my brain. But in my dating history, I had been jumped 3 times, cheated on once, and so every time I was in a relationship, I was just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just that conversation to come out of, we need to talk. Boom, relationship over. I was kind of waiting for that. And so when my wife and I had been dating for a while, maybe like 8 months in, I did something really stupid. I made some mistake, and I just kind of expected like that just to be the end of it. We were 8 months into a relationship, I did something dumb, and I expected, well, that was the relationship, 8 months. Hopefully do better on the next one, don't screw up. And that's not what I got. I got forgiveness and compassion from her. I remember feeling that moment, like, oh, I had a conflict. And it didn't end in a severed relationship. Like we're still together. It's going to be okay. And that means the next time we had a conflict, I was a little less anxious about it. I was a little less nervous about it. And so, we've been together since 2009. 15 years now. I don't have that anxiety anymore. And so good conflict over the course of time builds resilience. It builds strong bonds. That's like when my kids are fighting over a toy, they'll pull and pull and pull and pull and pull, And then when it breaks, they both end up hurt on the other side of the couch. But if you have resolution, then no one gets hurt on the other side. And so the first point is be quick to forgive. Jesus says this another way, and guys, I'm not gonna lie. Like this is something that's really hard for me to do. But here's what the biblical directive is, as much as we like it or don't like it. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift at the front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them. Then you come offer your gift. That's like, if you are worshiping the Lord, you are offering Him, you are in a great space with God, and you're like, hey, this relationship is important to me, it's strange. Jesus says, leave it, go solve that relationship, and then come back. It's like more important even than being in church and worshiping Jesus, more important than having that connection. It's going to be a stronger connection with God if your relationship is strongly connected to Him. It's a priority. Jesus' words, not mine. And so the longer you let it sit, the deeper it gets. It can grow with time. Don't sit on it. Be quick. The last point here comes from Luke 6. Kind of related again to this idea too. But if you who are listening say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. So I got more bad news. God wants you to love the people who have hurt you. God wants us to want good things for people who want bad things for us. If there's a person in the world who wants you to get a speeding ticket and trip on the stairs on the way up them and spill your coffee, God wants you to beg Him for good things for that person. I think there's a practice in here too of actually physically spending time when we pray for our enemies. Like when you pray, there's an actual practice that says, pray for your enemies. So I want you right now, you put their, well, put the name down, they might find it later. If you have a bulletin, or make a mental note of some people that you consider hard to love. The people who maybe hurt you in the past. People who you don't have a close relationship with anymore, maybe you once did, but the people on your list. Maybe you wouldn't call them enemies, but some people that you have prolonged, strained, maybe indefinitely strained relationships with. And when you pray good things for that person. Pray they get a promotion at work, that their car never breaks, that they have healthy relationships with people around them, that you ask good things for people that you don't like. And I think that has a heart-forming effect on you, that you're the one who will end up benefiting from that prayer because you'll learn to see them more clearly. And so I think that's a practice that you can jot down. Pray for your enemies. Jesus taught it. Literally ask God for good things for people who want bad things for you. So that's the fourth takeaway here. The fourth biblical directive is love even those who have hurt you. That it's not okay to harbor hate. There are close relationships that end and they have space between them forever, that never heals and never closes, and that can be okay. But Jesus does not mince words. We are to love our enemies, even if they don't love us. When people want bad things for us, we're to ask God for good things for them. And so that's the four, I think, very clear biblical commands that we get. Have a charitable perspective of the other person. Think about your role in the relationship. Own your space there. Pray for your enemies and be quick to forgive. I think those four things are black and white. You can't really argue from out of Scripture. And so I want to kind of blow out of those pieces of scriptural truth here and give you some of my own experiential and wisdom applied in those directions. And so this is coming from me, not necessarily from the Lord specifically. Those four things I think come from the Lord specifically. This is just good advice. So in Ephesians 4:15 it says, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head. So that phrase I think can ring above everything we say. Speak the truth in love. That's kind of like the overarching wisdom. Speak the truth in love. And that involves a lot of things. One of them is be direct. You got another Bible verse here. It says, if your brother or sister sins, go to and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you've won them over. So the wisdom there that Jesus is giving us is be direct. If someone's hurting you, go talk to them. I don't think that means every single time. Like if my son eats the last piece of the focaccia bread I've been saving, I'm not gonna be like, damn, that hurt. I wanted that focaccia. There are some things that you just gotta let go. But when possible, be direct. Speak the truth in love. That's the next kind of wisdom point here. Pick what to address. Choose your battle. Not every single conflict needs to be directly addressed. And I wish I had more wisdom for this about what you should address and what you shouldn't. I have no specific guidance. So you can put that in the QR code to ask Matt at the panel coming up on that Tuesday. Like, when do you pick a conflict resolution, and when do you just be the bigger man to let it go? That's a good question. My only guidance there would be if it's festering, if it's boiling up, if it's getting worse inside you, that's probably something you want to do. Like, you don't want to just let it keep bubbling and keep bubbling. So, be direct. Don't hold it in, but pick what to address. I want to come back to that point I made earlier too. A little conflict in the right way is good. It's okay to have conflict. The conflict can be good because, as I mentioned before, it builds resilience. If you have that moment of tension, or you feel some fight or flight, or you feel some discomfort, and then it ends on the other side with resolution, you will have a stronger bond on the other side of that. I think this is something our core team, our leadership team, does really well, is have constructive, productive disagreement. I read a book when I was in seminary called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's kind of a popular company book. It's not even from a Christian author, I don't think. But the first dysfunction that you can call out is there's no conflict. We've probably all been in circles like this, where people have disagreements, but they just keep them out. They don't just feel like a safe place to air your disagreement. Now, I think it's wrong for two reasons. One, you don't get the best result. A lot of people have good input. If you're the only one giving input, you say, how's it sound? And there's crickets on the other end, and there's no one disagreeing with you, you probably don't end up with the best product on the other side. Two, it makes feelings get stuffed back down deep. And so that will eventually bubble out in other ways. Be it passive-aggressive, where they just leave and they ghost you forever, or aggressive-aggressive, where there's people yelling at each other. So it's best to have a little bit of good conflict, resolve it, and move on. It builds a stronger bond when you have productive conflict. This is a big one, too. Things that feel really big will probably look smaller in the rear view. That when you look back on these big conflicts, they will probably not be as significant as they feel in the moment. That if you feel like, oh my God, I'm so mad, I can't believe this person did this. When you look back, you'll probably see I had a role in that too, one, and two, that wasn't that big a deal. I'll just give you one instance. Hope Matt's going to show you. When I was a student, like an old student, maybe a senior, old enough to know better, I'll say that. Matt was a pastor at BG, and he was leading the worship team, but I was kind of like leading one of the teams under him. So he kind of had the authority there, and I was like on the team. And I really wanted to do this thing. And we didn't really have the personnel to make it work. I still wanted to do it. And so Matt made the kind of like executive decision that they're not going to do it. They pulled the plug. And I just shot back an email to him. I think this is the wrong call. Period. Sent. It was impulsive. It was immature. It was anything childish you can imagine. So I think there's a category here. Probably a lot of us can even look back on our own conflicts in life and say, I was young and immature. That felt big back then, but it's not that big now. And so I kind of look back on that and laugh. I probably bring that up on that more often than I should. But it's an example of like I was young and foolish. Like it was really big then. It's not that big. And so I think it feels bigger in the moment than it actually is in reality. So that's the next practical lesson there. It looks smaller in the rear view. My last practical point here too is find positive solutions. That you have a sphere of influence over. You have some space in the world that you have authority and control of. And in that space there are things that you can do to make it better. And so if it's outside of that space, it's outside of your control. And as hard as it is, you ought to kind of release that because you can't do anything about it. But if it's inside your square footage of influence, and you can have some positive influence there, do it. Find positive solutions in your sphere of influence. I think about some times in my life too where instead of being positive or instead of even seeking resolution, I like talked about some things trying to get people back, and that just made it way worse. If you allow conflict to kind of fester outward into some other people, you air your dirty laundry in the wrong spaces, then you're going to end up making it worse. So my last practical point there is own your square footage. Find constructive solutions in the space that God has given you to have influence. And so I think that conflict is one of these topics that there's a lot of nuance to it. And hopefully something, one of those 4 points, or one of those practical application points is something that you can say, yeah, I can use in my life right now. And if not, I'm sure someday down the road you will. I don't have any like reflection here at the end except to say this. I think today it would be a great opportunity for you to pray for your enemies. And so I didn't plan to do this case right now. Let me give us like 2 or 3 minutes. Get that person in your brain who you feel wronged or hurt by. Someone in your past, maybe someone in your present still, who you feel has let you down, has crossed you off their list, who has severed the tie with you, or who has hurt you in some way. I've got one in my brain too. Sometimes these relationships end up broken, they are not resolved, but you should still end at a place where you want good things for them. And sometimes you have to play your way to get there. Maybe that person in your life right now, you don't want good things for them. You want them to get a speeding ticket. You want them to trip strong up. That's okay. Right now. I think God changes our hearts. So I want to do that practice I mentioned earlier, about 3 minutes here. Get that person in your brain who you have a conflict with that's not resolved. And ask God to give them forgiveness. That prayer goes 2 ways. One, it'll have consequences in their life, or hopefully God will bless them, truly bless them. And 2, it'll change your own heart, and it'll give you more clarity for that person. So I'm going to give us about 2 minutes here to pray on our own, and then I'll pray the rest. Pray that you would have your eyes to see the spirit of it. That you give us perspective to step out that helps us have love and passion for children. You told us that every human is an image of you, or a reflection of you. So Father, I pray that we would have that same value for their life that you have. That we would have your eyes of love for that. I pray that you would also give us eyes into our own lives. You would help us have be patient with ourselves. But that you would also show us the ways that we've been wrong. But show us that the dysfunction is baked into us so that we can have better, help your pastor, we can have more resolution, that we can own our role in the conflict. I pray to you, make us quick to forgive. You help us let go of sin, that you help us to seek resolution and be humble. Father, I pray you help us to have love for our enemies. That you have made each human, even the person who we don't like, as an image of you, Father. I pray that you can remember that in our interaction with them, in our memory, that we would have compassionate, gentle forgiveness. Lord, help us to see this resolution. As you saw it with us, Father, you've taken the extra mile. When we wronged you, you hung yourself on the cross. You went the extra mile. We didn't even come 1% of the way. We were still sinners. You died for us. And you called us to have that love. Thank you for your example. Thank you for your love. Thank you for us. Help us have that same love.
Feel free to stand up and worship. We sing a song called Refiner this morning. As Isaiah 48, 10 and 11 says, "Behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tried you in the furnace of affliction. For my own sake, I do it. But how should my name be great? My glory I will not give from no one." And this is a challenging verse. And I think the song Refiner is a challenging song to sing as a worship song. What we're saying in this song is, you're a fire, the refiner. I want to be consumed. I want to be tried by fire, purified. Take whatever you desire, Lord, here's my life. When we say we want to be like Jesus, how much, what are we willing to go through to do it? When things get difficult, when we become tested, we end up stronger on the other side. Like Tom says, conflict builds resilience. When we're more tested, we become more like Christ, sanctified on the other side. And so in this song, we're basically saying, God, I'm willing to be tested. I'm willing to go through what it takes to be more like you. And not for me. Because verse 11 says, this is for God's own sake. For God's name to be worshipped. That people see it through. Challenging, but also worshipful.
The altar's where you lead us. Take me there, take me there. What you need is just an offering. It's right here, my life is here, and I be a living sacrifice for you. Father, I wanna be consumed. I wanna be tried by fire, purified. You take whatever you desire. Lord, it's my life.
If your glory wants to come here, let it fall. We want it all. Your fire is consuming. Fill this place, set it ablaze. I'll be a living sacrifice for you. You're a fire, the refiner. I wanna be consumed. I wanna be tried by fire. Purified. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. I wanna be tried by
refiner. I wanna be consumed. Refine, refiner. I wanna be consumed. I wanna be tried by fire. Purify. Take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. I wanna be tried by fire. Just like a bird, I am a tree. Wave of his wind and mercy. Upon the sun, I am unaware of afflictions which by glory, and I realize just how how he loves us so. How he does us so.
Yeah, I just kept thinking about that when we were singing that song, how much He loves us. And in light of what Tom was sharing earlier about us forgiving our enemies, one of the most astounding parts, I think, of the whole story of Jesus is that He is hung on the cross. He is on the cross in pain and torment to take on the sin of the world. And in one of the strangest prayers, but honest prayers, He prays and He says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. That is crazy forgiveness. He says, God, it's going to be okay. I'm taking on their sin. These people have no idea what they're doing. But they're putting me through this. I'm so grateful to take this on for them. What an amazing prayer. What an amazing Jesus and how He loves us. That's how much He loves us. He says, Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing. So thank you guys for being here for service this morning. Just some quick reminders. If you want to be a part of the well, we'd love for you to join us 2:30 in the library. And then if you are going on the spring break trip or you were thinking about going on the spring break trip, meet us out in the hallway. We'd love to get you signed up. All right. Thanks for coming this morning.